Well, for today's perspective, we're staying with the situation in Israel and Gaza to try to work out the wider geopolitical effect of what's happening at the moment. There's a kind of humanitarian triage at the moment. So many people under siege in Gaza. You have the Israeli hostage in Gaza too. You have the situation on the border with Lebanon looking extremely tense. Israeli troops on the ground. Looks like this ground invasion could start. The offensive and an evacuation order too. So where does this leave things? Well, at the moment, we are in a situation where Ian Lesser from Brussels might be able to help with a vision and an analysis from experience. He's the Vice President of the German Marshall Fund think tank. Ian, let's start with your thoughts on the latest development. This evacuation order from the Israelis, the potential effects and dangers of what could come next.
Good to be with you to talk about this. Well, it does seem absolutely to be the precursor to a ground operation, with obviously very, very severe potential civilian costs. But of course, what's going on now with the airstrikes also is imposing extraordinary civilian costs. It's hard to know precisely what Israel has in mind, but it does strike me that there is a desire to basically drive Hamas out of Gaza. And with a ground operation, this will basically bring fighters out into the street, perhaps get civilians out of the way. I'm not sure that this is going to be any worse than what's going on now, but it would concentrate the fight, as far as Israel sees it, concentrate the fight on Hamas fighters in Gaza, because that's clearly the aim, is to drive them out of power, perhaps to drive them out of Gaza entirely.
Ian, one thing that you might be able to give some deeper context on, a lot of emails to France 24, a lot of people generally saying that why did this group Hamas on Saturday attack in the way it did? We've heard the US and Israeli leaders calling it an ISIS-style attack. Hamas is a very different, almost a strategic rupture from the past in terms of its brutal methods. What's your analysis of that?
Well, many observers who've studied Hamas for years go back to some of its founding documents and declarations and find in those evidence that this kind of apocalyptic desire to not just kill Israelis but kill Jews specifically is part of their ideology. It is a radical Islamist group. It has a jihadist agenda in addition to a national liberation agenda. And this kind of mass lethality is the sort of action that has gone along with terrorism of that kind in recent years, whether it was ISIS or by others. And so, I think it stems from the Hamas ideology, frankly. The fact that they were able to do it is extraordinary, and that's a separate conversation. But I think it all stems from basically their sort of, religious apocalyptic ideology, which lends itself to mass lethality.
Now, you said the fact that they were able to do it. I think one of the opposition voices, Yair Lapid, saying this is a unparalleled, unspeakable failure. I think New York Times reporting that they'd taken out, Hamas, some of the communication systems to stop the computerized monitoring, to stop, therefore, half of their effective defense system at the border. Now, clearly that's going to be looked at by the Israeli government. Within that, Yair Lapid saying he won't be part of the unity government. He doesn't believe it is working in the way it will be. Do you think there is space right now in Tel Aviv amongst the cabinet, this war cabinet, for more reflective voices?
Well, one would hope so. I'm not so sure. I think in the wake of this extraordinary, very violent attack, emotions, to say they're running high is an obvious understatement. And if you go back to examine things like 9/11 and so on, it becomes very difficult to produce a sort of objective strategy under those conditions. I'm sure there are those in Israel, including in the military establishment, who will try. But will cooler heads prevail under these conditions? Very, very doubtful. I think clearly there will be intense scrutiny of what went wrong. And there are already some suggestions of what might have gone wrong. Over-reliance on technology, looking elsewhere with what is a very capable intelligence establishment in Israel, but wasn't focused on this. And there are many, many reasons for that. And also the nature of the attack, which was very surprising. I mean, as you were discussing earlier, it's a hybrid, basically, attack of terrorism, terrorist tactics, irregular warfare by this group, and an information warfare at the same time. Very unexpected, very difficult to address.
There was one statement that I think has caught a lot of people, or made a lot of people wonder at least, but by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Israeli Prime Minister, saying that what will happen next will change the Middle East. What was your readout of what he meant by that?
Well, it was a very confusing remark, and I'm not sure entirely what he meant by that. I mean, of course, as a statement of what might happen, it could be quite true. It's not so much I think that Israel is setting out to change the Middle East, but these events as they unfold, and especially if there's further escalation involving perhaps Hezbollah and Iran, could well change the Middle East in various ways. It does remind me a little bit of the discussion that went on after 9/11. In which there were voices in Washington, especially, that saw in the evolution of the Middle East after those attacks the possibility of actually changing the region. That didn't turn out very well in many ways, but it led, inexorably to the intervention in Iraq and other things. So under these conditions, to go back to your earlier question, where emotions run high and the strategic demands are extraordinary, all sorts of decisions can be made, and they're very difficult to explain in retrospect.
There's clearly a very tangled web of international states that could be pulled into this, that are already involved in this. Hamas, financially backed by Iran, Hezbollah on the northern border with Lebanon, also backed by Iran, and worries for Israel fighting on several borders. We have Antony Blinken, Secretary of State in the US, traveling to Jordan, Qatar today. If I could ask you, it's a difficult ask because we don't know where this is going in terms of a ground offensive, but what do you see as potentially a worst case scenario coming up, and what would you hope to be, conversely, the best case scenario?
Well, the worst case scenario clearly is further escalation, in which Iran might come into this more directly, or if it's discovered that there's a direct Iranian role in this recent attack, one could well imagine the United States becoming directly involved in this. And that could happen even if this battle extends to Hezbollah in Lebanon. The U.S. forces that are in the Eastern Mediterranean at the moment, I don't think they're there principally to support Israel over what's happening in Gaza. It's, I think, to provide reassurance against the possible widening of the conflict to involve the North. There's also, of course, the very difficult situation with the hostages, Israeli hostages, but also international hostages. All sorts of things are possible there. The best scenario, of course, would be for a third party, perhaps Qatar or Turkey or another country, to broker a successful release of the hostages, which could lead in turn to a de-escalation of this crisis in some fashion. But given the scale of what has happened, it's hard to imagine that Israel will accept an outcome that leaves Hamas essentially in place as it has been.
Really good to talk to you, Ian. Really good context for us as well. Ian Lesser from the German Marshall Fund. Thanks again.
Thank you.